Hey guys, welcome to OCT Real Talk. This is a completely unplanned Real
Random.
Talk because we got on a call and yeah, we just thought and we had time. We were like, let's just quickly record like a
No,
conversation.
let's talk. Let's tell the truth. We had a one-to-one with someone, and they didn't show up, and now they're gonna die.
Essentially,
So I
and
look at moment.
we
I
thought we
was like,
had
I'm
this
already
hour.
out.
Yeah,
What am I
so
gonna do? I'm already drinking my coffee. It's 5:18 in the morning. I'm not going back to sleep.
yeah,
It's over.
essentially, yeah. Um, right. So we thought we would talk about when recovery work becomes compulsive and all the different elements and how it can become compulsive because
Yes.
I think people don't, and I feel like this is still something that's not talked about enough. I feel like it's like, oh, this is recovery work, so this needs to be done at this pace, and that's all. No, like it,
Totally.
a lot of times it has to be calibrated so that it doesn't become like a full-on kind of thing for people. What's the last example that you came across on a call with someone that you had to tell them to not do?
I think it's important for everyone to hear that everything that we're about to say, Moment and myself and Sam and Jeb, everyone did it. So we had to learn ourselves when recovery was compulsive and when it wasn't. So if you're first coming in, if you're coming in for your very first call, okay, let's say you come in and you have 3 sessions and you're not in the best place, and those sessions are like Friday, and then 12 days after that one. So not exactly 2 weeks. The chances of you forcing recovery in those 3.5 weeks is 100%. Not 99. You will force it in some way because you're going to go into the groups and you're going to see people that are recovered and like because there's different groups that we have, and if you go in one of the older groups, you're going to have people in your groups that have been in there for 5 years who are
Yeah.
recovered and they stayed in to help people because it really does help with your recovery. I get asked this a lot. Does working with recovery make it? And I said no, it strengthened my recovery immensely because I
Yeah.
talk about every fear. And the first thing that people will do, this is forcing it. This is, by the way, disclaimer, there are a lot of people that won't put any work in. That's not what this call's about. We're talking about people who are putting the work in.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll show up, and let's say, I'm sure Moment's seen this too. Oh, I've read the books in the past, but I haven't read them the way I needed to. So I'm going back and highlighting a lot more. I'm like, hold on, what books on the reading list have you not read? And then maybe they say like Paul David's. I'm like, let's start with that. No, no, you always say that Ellis's book is so important. I want to go back and I'm like, no, just hold on. There's other things to work on besides the book, you
Yeah.
know? So that would be number one. And the other one I would say that's like a beginning forceful because most people, I think Moment, you would agree with this. I think most people in the first couple months are not actually compulsive yet. They usually
Hmm.
get about cutting compulsions because the symptoms they get from cutting are so bad. So they'll like get motivated, cut a couple, and then be like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted.
Yeah,
Take a
they'll stop
slide back. Like
midway. Yeah.
it really is 2 steps forward, 100 steps back in the
Yeah.
beginning. It feels that way.
I think the two
So
examples that come to my mind are like one with the books, like someone came in, and if he's watching this, he knows exactly who he is. Like he came in on the first call, and I said, okay, these are the books, so start with the first one, and let's see how it goes. Next week, 7 days later, comes in for a call, and he's like, oh, I read the first book, and then I've also almost finished with the second one. I was like, that's not impressive to me in the context of recovery. That's not a gold star because obviously in a week you're just like zapped through them. Like that's
yes,
you
yes.
you've probably either done it within mindset of like I need to solve this very quickly, or in your mind it's like, oh, like if I complete these ASAP, then I can recover ASAP as well. And
Yes.
he exactly saw, so he had to basically go back to the first book and kind of like read it in a gradual manner because that's how you're going to take information in. Like you as a chiropractor, imagine if you were like, okay, this course book that I've received from my for this lecture, I'm
Yeah.
going to read through it like in 10 days, and then I know everything. No, you probably
That's
have
a
to
great
go
that's a
through
great
that
way to
over
look
and
at
over.
it.
Yeah.
And I did that myself. Like once I put my video games away and I
Yeah.
actually took it seriously, which by the way, this is important for everyone to hear. I mean, I had done 15 calls before I did a single thing that Rob told me to do. I mean,
Yeah.
like people don't really see that. So when I started to take it seriously, I don't know if I had a mentality. I think I did where I'm like, I have to like catch up. And then I read basically all 6 books, including Marcus Aurelius, in 3 months, and it really didn't do me any good because
Mm,
when I went back and read the books when I was in a better mindset, I wasn't so stuck with my sensory motor. My anxiety wasn't
mm.
9 out of 10, 24/7. I was like, oh, okay, I can just read 10 pages a day. And then this is moment like we have things that we have like ploys and traps that we set for people that we can see how compulsive they're being. So I'm sure, Moment, you've done this. I said to people, just do me a favor. Our next call's in 2 weeks. No reading the books. What do you mean? What do you mean no
Yeah.
reading the books? I'm like, yeah, read something else. Go buy a book about physics. If you I, like, I don't care what it is.
Read crime
But don't
fiction. Yeah.
literally read anything. Well, no, I don't think I'm at where I want to be yet. I said, yeah, but you see why I asked that question? You think there's going to be a noticeable difference? There's never a noticeable difference in a 2 week period.
Yeah.
And you can just tell when someone's really forcing it with that. And acceptance, I like using my favorite example I use with someone, Moment, for, and we all have examples that we use. Let's say I'm working with someone who's a Christian, Catholic, whatever they are.
Yeah.
I say, okay, ready? How long have you been a Catholic for? They say to me, since I was a kid. I'm 45. I said, okay. Imagine if I came to you every time I say this thing. Oh, everyone says, oh, that's a good example. Say, I came to you with the Bible, and I say, hi, yes, I'm here. I was an atheist. I want to become a Catholic. I just read the entire Bible in a week. Why am I not Catholic? That you would look at
That's
me
a
and
good
be
way of
like,
putting it. Yeah.
you would look at me and be like, do I want this person in my church? Like, this
Yeah.
person's a little intense.
Yeah.
That's a good way to look at it.
And I think like in another way, like someone once came in and they were like, um, I've watched all the videos on your channel, and I'm like, okay. And they're like, yeah, some days, when I wake up at like maybe 10 a.m. and then till 2 p.m. I'm basically watching the videos on the channel. I'm like, I appreciate the views, but like it's not good.
No.
That's
Yeah.
not good. That again,
Do you
not
put people
impressive
on
for me.
bans a lot in the beginning? That's something I do. I do like a 2 week ban a lot where I'm like, look, no YouTube
Yeah.
videos. And you can hear them to get deflated. They're like this. Oh, I'm
Yeah,
like that.
it's very
Again,
difficult
no
for
use
them
sharpening.
to exactly. So there have been people sometimes where I've sometimes told them to I'm like unsubscribe because if you're like just in that mode of I need to stay up to date with all videos that are coming in and know exactly what's going on, then you're staying keeping yourself in that loop of like I need to know every information that comes on this channel or wherever it is. So
Totally.
and that's a very difficult thing for people to, I think, do to be able to step away from recovery work and not be in constant solving mode that way. So
Yes.
you have to remember, and this is like with literally anything in recovery, whether it's reading the books, whether it's disputing, whether it's doing your exposures, whether it's like increasing your awareness and knowledge and education about OCD itself. Um, whether it's oh, and this is then I think the next one we should talk about cutting compulsions compulsively, because cutting compulsions can also be done in a super compulsive way.
Hmm.
And I have like a couple of examples to do that, but I think before we just get into that, I think just the highlighting of recovery work itself can be compulsive. So it has to be done, especially if you are someone who you feel like or you're really chasing recovery or relief and really trying to force acceptance. Slow down. You have to pace yourself out a little bit. And maybe you kind of have to also go like depending on how it's going, but like maybe like a week on working on recovery and a week off, that kind of like alternate
And,
format.
and before we go into the cutting the compulsion part, like it's hard for people to. When I say this to someone, they can't believe they. I had 2 calls yesterday where I said to them, when was the last time you had a 45-minute period where you literally did not have anything going on up here? And one of them was in their 50s. And she's like, I cannot remember. Like, it's been decades. I'm
Yeah.
like, when you're in recovery, it's not what you think. We don't walk around saying, okay, remember your beliefs about sensory motor. Okay, remember your beliefs about body dysmorphia. Your beliefs are instilled. There's no reminders. Like this is why when you guys are reading the books compulsively, you think the more you do, the better. This
Yeah.
isn't like going to the gym. Like the more effort you put in, the stronger you can get. It's actually it has a negative effect.
Yeah.
Like you make it even harder. So we'll transition into cutting compulsions. And I know it pains me to say this. I will be the first person. I don't think I've ever admitted this on a phone call to anyone, but it has to be done. Someone's like, "Oh my God, what is he going to say?"
Mhm.
Um, I did not believe in that there was such a thing as I really did think you could just go all in the cutting compulsions, and the harder effort you put into that, the better off you'd be. And I actually gave this recommendation like in the beginning of my coaching days, like in 2021, early 21, late 20. And I was wrong because I biased myself being like most people are going to have the personality where I'm like, I will die. Like,
Yeah,
which is not a good personality. It's like,
yeah.
many people know who David Goggins is. Like, sure, there's a place where you have to be like, okay, like I'm going on this date, I'm really nervous. You can do it. Like, you don't have to do that with everything in your life. You can take your time,
I
you
think like
know?
I mean I don't for example like I don't have to wake up and be like okay moment today you have to eat well like you don't
It's
need
such
like
a good
those
example.
reminders for things so, okay
Yes.
moment like you have to look after your hygiene. I mean when I'm I don't know brushing my teeth or flossing my teeth or I don't know like using a really nice body wash or something, I'm not thinking oh look I am looking after my hygiene. Like there's no internal script that goes into
Yes,
every
such a
single
good
behavior.
example.
Like I think this is like the perfect example to give with how cutting compulsions can also be done in a super compulsive way, which is like someone I had a call with someone and for them like contamination OCD was kind of like latching on a little bit and just the element of disgust and they didn't want to feel the sensation of disgust and things like that. So I was like okay like so what are you doing? And he's like I'm not avoiding anything. I'm the things that do disgust me I'm doing them. I'm going after them. I'm not like washing things or avoiding blah blah blah. I go to the gym and I never wipe my phone after the gym, right? Because I keep it, if it feels a little icky, I keep it that way. When I'm having my food, I use my phone while I'm having food because I used to find that disgusting, but I'm doing that. And I was like, do you feel like, and then there were like a couple of other things he mentioned as well. And I was like, do you think you're being a bit too compulsive about facing disgust at every single opportunity that you get? He's like, yeah, I think so, maybe. Because he was really afraid that if he's, let's say, um, if he if he did um not wipe his phone after the gym, then he's going to be doing something wrong and compulsive.
Yes.
So he was like, I have to like do the right, correct thing that is prescribed by like the recovery thing, which is like
Mega
food.
imaginary rules. Like these imaginary rules, I said to myself, I'll give you guys a great example. And there's a couple videos that will be out before this, I'm sure, because they will because the schedule
Yeah,
or the Jen and Sam ones about life after recovery. So even after you're recovered, like you just because you don't have an OCD cycle doesn't mean you don't have the genetics. So like for me, what I found myself was because Moment and everyone that knows me knows I like structures and goals.
yeah,
I actually need to be more aware of that than the average person. So, like, I would say to Erica, right? 2 cigars a month is fine. But it actually wasn't that. It was, I'm only allowed to have two a month. Instead of just like, hey, look, if I have three, I make the decision, let's take a couple weeks off in the moment.
yeah,
Because I had trained myself for years and years with these behaviors that, like, there's a lot of people that come in that are very similar personalities and beliefs to me where I'm like, yeah, you don't need as much structure, and they get angry.
yeah,
They're like,
yeah,
are you telling me to be lazy? I'm like,
yeah.
no, no, no. You can have goals with
But you have to be
loose.
flexible about them. Yeah.
You need to be flexible about them.
I said to this
It
guy as well, I said, listen, like a couple of times a week when after you go to the gym, wipe your phone. Like do the compulsive thing that you think you
yes,
shouldn't be doing.
yes.
Like a few times a week when you're having a meal or whatever, use your phone with it. And I was saying this jokingly to him. I was like, by this standard, what you're going to then do is you're not going to use a tissue paper to blow out your nose or clean out your nose. When you need to, you're going to be using your fingers. And he started laughing and he was like, I think that's kind of also what I've been doing. I was like, do you see
Yeah.
what you're doing? You're like, okay, I'm going to do like every disgusting thing that I can in
More is
order to
not
like
better.
push the
Yeah.
fear out. No, because then
Yes.
you're putting an extra layer of pressure on yourself to like, I have to recover. It's going into that same mindset of like, I can't live my life if I don't recover, and like, my life is ruined kind of
And
thing.
that's when the best thing that Moman, me, Sam, Rob, everyone, Elliot, who's starting to coach, we all here in Gemma, is our favorite sentence. Is it a compulsion or is it avoidance? And when you try to force compulsions, literally, we all been there. Something as simple as this. Ready? Oh crap! Like, is me holding something in my hand a distraction right now? Should I be more focused on what Moment's saying? And then your brain. And by the way, everyone will go through this. It's just a natural part of the process.
Yeah.
Like the constant doubt. I didn't have that so much in the beginning, but once I started to get better, because when you're so incredibly stuck and your goals are just like make it to the next morning alive, a
Yeah.
lot of the stuff doesn't play out until you start to value getting better. And then you start to go, what the heck? Like everything seems compulsive and this and that. And that's why I tell people just for 2 weeks, live like I told you right now. Hey, man, I want to be honest with you. I've been lying to you. None of us had OCD. It's not, we've never had it. There's no recovery. Good luck. And when I say this, I had two people this week who I've worked with for both of them for over 2 years. They're in a good spot. But overall, this is lingering. So I said to the one of them, one of these individuals I went hiking with, I said, do not lie to me. If I told you right now that this is as far as you're going to get, I could prove to you that this is it for you.
Yeah.
And he took a big sigh. I hope he watches this and he says, man, that would really suck. I said, that's it. This is
Yep.
why you're not, because it's not actually that. You don't understand. You are still rushing around looking for the extra
Yeah.
piece. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't work like that. Like I got to a place. Okay, so let's say I met Rob in 19. By the time I was in 2021, kind of like the back 9 months, I was it was over. Like I was just like, I don't need any more progress. And I never thought about my sensory motor recovery for the most part ever again. So maybe 6 months later, I'd be sitting down like this. I'd be like, wow, I really am doing better. Like my beliefs are changing. And that was it.
Yeah.
What, 8 seconds of thinking about it? And that's how I knew I really got comfortable with the sensory motor world because
Yeah.
I had given up all control to be like, am I missing this? Am I missing that? Because
Yeah.
in your guys' mind, you think when you're forcing compulsion recovery, you think, which we're going to lead this into doing exposures compulsively. That's going to like ERP
Yeah.
specific.
Yeah.
That'll be our next topic. And you think that if you don't do everything you can, you will stay stuck longer. No, that does not work like that. You will stay stuck longer doing what you're doing. It's actually the
Yeah.
opposite because
No,
your OCD,
and it's like,
it's
I mean, people are then also going to be like, oh, but I don't know, having chocolate makes me feel good. Is that compulsive? So then they're going to associate any good, enjoyable feeling
I
with,
did that. The reason why I almost laugh, I did that with my coffee. I would go through these. I'd be like, "Oh, come on, you're not like other people, Nick. Coffee calms you down. Like, you got to have one only and just one."
yeah.
And then, no, I like. Oh God, back and forth, back and forth,
Yeah,
back and
so
forth.
and because anything that then brings you any sort of happiness, joy, comfort, calmness is going to be like, oh, is this compulsive? And then people are going to be like, oh, maybe I need to give this up and give that up. Like, and I was like, wait, so basically by that standard, what you're saying that the entire recovery process is one big torturous process where you're not allowed any form of relief or comfort. Like, that's not how it is. Like, in fact, we're telling people to go out and see your friends, go out and, do enjoyable things and nice things for yourself along while you're working on things. Like, it's
Have
not
a
that you have
drink,
to
have
keep
some
yourself
bad
in
foods.
lockdown.
When we tell people that, like, this is why that girl, if you saw in the group member yesterday, she posted that video of like, oh, I haven't drank in 4 years. And with hormone, by the way, a huge compulsion. I
Yeah.
always ask people the same thing. Uh, do you drink? Oh, no, not for me. Okay. Were you ever an extreme alcoholic? No, of course not. Okay, so you probably can have a martini with your girlfriends. And then you hear the fear come out. Oh,
Yeah.
well, last time I did it, I woke up and I was really anxious and I had some false memory real events, so I haven't drank in 12 years.
And also, like, this is the other thing, how OCD can be very sneaky. It can mask things as, oh no, this is just the preference of lifestyle I have. Which, I mean, look, I mean, for example, I don't drink, right? I mean, but also like if someone told me, okay, Moment, for the next I don't know, 2 weeks, you have to have half a glass every day or something like that. I'd be like, okay, sure. I mean, I don't really like alcohol, but I'd be like, okay, sure. I mean, if that's what you want me to do, I'll
Exactly.
try and see how it goes,
Yes.
right? So there's a certain kind of flexibility that comes with that. And I'm not going into the religious aspect of alcohol right now. That's a separate topic. But in general, talking about like, when people are like, that's just a lifestyle preference. No, sometimes if if I have certain lifestyle preferences, but if someone asks me to change them up, like I sleep at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., everyone knows that, right? But if someone tells me, okay, Moment, by 10 or 11 p.m. you have to be in bed, I won't like that. I'll be honest, I won't like that because I like staying the late
You,
night
you want
sleep.
to hear a good example moment? What Rob gave me? No one
Yeah.
knows this, actually. There's only one. You haven't even heard this.
Yeah.
So Rob sends me, when he goes for his nighttime walks and he's all pumped up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just so you guys know, when Rob is giving us like advice, we're talking about the growth of the company. Rob goes on these big walks and he'll like send me a voice note, and you could hear him being like he's just like you could tell he loves that. So he
Yeah.
sends me a voice note about 10 days ago now, where he goes, "I want you to try something." Anytime Rob says that, I'm like, "What is this guy gonna say?"
What is this
So
experiment?
you want to know what he said?
Yeah.
You are not going to believe this. He goes, I think you're at a place. He goes, I don't want you to bring it all back, just the major movements. He goes, I want you to start tracking your programming again. And
Yeah.
I was like, this is really honest to show you guys. And in that moment, I felt like a twinge because I was like, I don't know. Like, I really don't know if I can handle that, you know? And he was like, no, he made a good point. He goes, Nick, do it for 2 to 3 weeks. If you feel like you're becoming compulsive, just cut it. What's the worst that happens? You go through a spike. And I was like, okay, that's a pretty good point. So, and then he goes, I want you to start taking creatine again, the supplement. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I've been taking supplements in like 3.5 years, because it was so compulsive for me.
Yeah.
So I started to do it. And when I was doing it, it goes to show you just how, even in the recovered state, that fear of like potentially. So I did like a week of programming from like my squat, bench, and deadlift, just the big motions. And as I was doing it, I could feel like in the background the old kind of mechanism of like,
Yeah.
make sure you perfect it, make sure you get this. And it's interesting because he made a good point to me. What daisies, Paul?
Yeah.
It's a freak.
It's like this. What is that thing sticking out?
She's the worst. So, so it goes to show you, because he made a good point. He's like, look, the programming is not the problem. He goes, it was your belief about the programming. I
Yeah.
think you're in a place in your life now. So, but in the past, I was so black and white, right? Like we're talking about, it's either all in or all out,
Oh,
and there's
yeah.
nothing else. So
I had that problem with several things as well. I was like either all in or all out. Like I have to do it like full on in this way forever, or I can't do it at all.
yes. Now
Yeah.
let's talk about, I think, a good thing, because I have a call here in 20 minutes. Let's talk
Yeah.
about this one, because this is the one that people give us the biggest kickback on, and that is ER. You have to use the term ERP, specifically compulsively. Okay, if you are working with someone well intentioned as they are, and you have harm OCD, and they are, every time you're going in, and this is a knife, and you've gotten to a place where you're putting that knife on your forearm, and now you're having a conversation. And there's probably subtle reassurances that are in there. Because when I have people tell me, what are the conversations that you're having with this person? They'll be like, well, they're telling me, look, you're safe. Look, you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
be. I'm like, it's a double, that's not good. So,
Double edged
from
knife, quite literally.
exactly,
Yeah.
and I say, but
Yeah.
all I have to say to you is this. And then they get angry because they're like, I don't want to think about that. What happens if you sleepwalk and grab a knife and you do
Yeah.
something when you're sleeping? No, no. So you could see that they're
And
chasing this relief.
I've had people who have been through this as well, and I've had to like tell them again, like this is, I think, something that like people can get wrong. Again, as well intentioned as they may be, but like, oh, you've had a new thought, like a new kind of like format, like harm OCD, sure, but it's gone from what if I lose control and stab my family. Now it's gone into, oh, what if now I don't know, what if I eat my family or burn them alive, kind of thing. So, oh,
Mhm.
now you're having that for, for the past week. Okay, let's do some exposures with that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, I mean, not because then it's going to keep morphing into like, okay, now what about like, I don't want to kill them or burn them alive. What if I just want to mutilate them?
Yes.
What if I feel like I have to chain them to my car and then drag them through the street? Like, it's going to morph into so many variations of harm,
And think
but
about
you
the other
can't be
side of
doing
the
exposure
coin.
for each and every one of them.
Exactly. And think about this too. And when you do that, understandably so, because most people will tell you to do that. Now you're again what we said, the fear of not recovering. This is why cutting compulsions, that's the belief. We haven't talked, the specific belief is if I don't do this fast, if I don't do it properly, then I'm not going to recover. I need to
Yeah.
get a very close eye. It's fear of fear.
And
So when
sorry,
you
just one
jump,
thing as well with
yeah,
this exposure thing as well. It's also that if I don't take care of this right now, it's going to grow and take over my life, and then I'm going to be stuck with this new problem.
bingo. And that's right, because there's multiple angles, but
Yeah,
fear of being stuck forever, fear of going backwards, and fear of developing something new. Those are
yeah,
really the big
yeah,
legs of the fear. And when you jump onto something so quickly, that's what it is. Oh my gosh, I need to take care of this now.
yeah,
And you fuel that. So when I tell people this drives me and Mo, we always get a kick out of it. Because like again, we were all of you. When someone has something new latch, especially when they're starting to read the books and you're, because real quick, people will ask me, why do you guys say that morphing isn't a bad sign? I'm like, well, you have to think about OCD. It's like, it's a child, it's been screaming, you're not paying attention to the child. So the child starts hitting the wall to get even more attention. So it has to do things to trick you up, to get you analyzing. So when it morphs, and let's say we had a call on a Tuesday, and on Saturday of the past weekend, so 4 days, 3 days ago, you were out with your friends and you automatically developed a false memory. You have not had false memory real event
yeah.
ever. You had by dysmorphia. You go, oh my gosh. I said, let's leave it for 2 weeks. And you could hear them shaking through the phone. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, no, no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah, they
no.
want the immediate answer. Like this happens so much. They'll be like, "Hey, Moment, so I mean, yes, we've been discussing, that theme for a while, but for the past 2 weeks, I've had this new fear that's come up, and my brain goes XYZ, right? And then they want to really explain that this is what my brain is doing, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to jump into any homework for this fear for the time being. Let's see how it goes for another, like you said, 2 3 weeks, and if it's like lingering and it's still there pretty strongly, then we can take a look at it. But right now
Yes.
I don't want to do anything about it because and I've had this, like, by the way, Nick, like I've had, when I look back on my recovery journey, I've had like actual like few weeks of bouts with sensory motor, which now I recognize as sensory motor. Back then, I had no clue that this is what's called
Yeah.
sensory motor. I was just like, yeah, it's probably just an anxious response that I'm fixating on my breathing. Inherently true. Essentially, that's a true statement. But if I had known that there's something called sensory motor OCD, and it can make you fixate on body sensations and breathing, I would have immediately been like, oh shit, I've never had sensory motor OCD. I've only had contamination OCD and relationship OCD. This is a
Yes.
new thing and this is a new beast. Oh shit, like what do I do about this now? And I'm so glad I didn't have the categorical labeling awareness of what it's called, because I was able to take it in a stride across even just a month or two, that, oh, I've had a couple of months where I'm just like thinking a lot about if I'm breathing deeply enough or not. And that's all.
And I probably have had, not from like the part of, I know I have because I had all of the major sensations, but like I would have ones where I would just, again, hands were a big one. Like my hands never felt, not in the sense of like, oh my gosh, I'm dirty, just the icky sensation. Like, they feel just like
Yeah,
like sticky and not clean. And I would have that and it would just stay with me for like months. I mean, I just
yeah.
never felt, and this is why people think the more work you do, the better. But I think a good thing to kind of end it on now, we'll transition into some like recommendations of, look, there's no line in the sand of how to work on this properly, but I'll give my recommendation. I'll let Moman
And
go.
this is where, by the way, just quick thing as well, this is where the
Mhm.
one-to-one calls also come into play, because I
Yes.
mean, because there's going to be a lot of things where a blanket amount of advice won't go, because
No.
like you really have to look at individually what that person is doing, and sometimes it's um, uh, like you've been working for them for 2 months and they've been, functioning a certain way, and then they'll have a patch of 2 weeks where they're doing things completely differently that they've done in the past 2 months.
Can I
So
give an
then,
example moment?
yeah,
Like yesterday is a good example. Look, guys, this is not, we didn't choose to have OCD, okay? And I
yeah,
get it. Everyone's like, I didn't choose to have it. Like, it's not like when you like pay for gym sessions. We get it. It really is. If there is fairness, it isn't fair. But I'll give you a great example what happened yesterday. I had a girl that came in. She goes, "Oh, by the way, my boyfriend worked with you back when I used to take paper notes. So it was a long time ago." She comes in. She goes, "Both of us have been following you for 2 years." The amount of compulsion she was doing and avoidance and bad mindset,
yeah,
I would say I had another guy, the first guy that got added to the new group moment, the one that was first by himself. Same thing. He goes, "I've been following you for 2 years with sensory motor." And when I said this to him, I would have never thought. The guys, this is why the ones are so specific. I was like, "Can you sit in a chair with no distractions?" He's like, "That's good for you." I'm like, "Well, I've not watched my videos then." Like, as I talk about why distractions isn't good. So this is what it is. OCD is not easy because even though we're talking about this, you guys, we're only covering 50% of the coin. The other coin is this. No, no, no. You need to put more work in. You haven't read the books, and it's been 12 calls. Like, I've said this to people. I don't like doing this because I know you're suffering, but there's people that will watch this where I say, you are actually not allowed to have another call with me until you read 50 pages in that book. I will not have the call. And then it makes them be like,
yeah,
crap. I'm
yeah.
like, it's
I
wasting your
had
money.
someone just literally this morning as well. She's been coming in for a while, and she's like, "Yeah, I've been really bad with the books. They're so hard to read. I'm on Clear Weeks, and it. I'm like, Clear Weeks is probably the easiest, along with Paul David on the list. If you're
Yes.
finding Clear Weeks difficult, then you're up for the myth
The
of
myth of
self-esteem.
self-esteem is going to be like you're reading a different language, you know?
Exactly. So I
Like,
was like, and part of it is also I was saying to her as well. I was like, it's also the inconsistency with reading, because if you're, let's say, if you read like 10 pages and you're only able to understand one page from it, but then you put like a gap of like 10 days before reading the next time, you're going to forget that one page as well. So the next time you go into reading the book,
yes.
you would have forgotten it, and you're going to be going in it with dread and being like, oh, like I don't understand it, I don't know anything, because you're not building on the knowledge that you,
The
even the little
momentum.
bit of knowledge you,
Yeah,
yeah, the momentum that you
the,
need for it.
the momentum really, people underestimate, and that will take me into like my recommendations on, what I think is a good path for most people. Okay, so 6 months is a reasonable time frame to get the books done. If
Yes.
you read 10 pages a day and you take the weekends off, like that's you'll be done with you'll be done with Summerly Refuse in 1 month. You
Hmm.
don't be reading 30, 40 pages a day. You're not really going to retain it. And most people won't. Another good one is if you're doing a bunch of avoidance behaviors, like you're a sensory motor stuff, there's not like magical thinking rituals. You're just like not going to work. I don't expect you to jump back into like surgery tomorrow, but I need you to
Basically, yeah.
get, you'll never have the right time of, I don't know if I'm ready yet to go to work. That's never happening. You are gonna. There, like Rob used to say, I never quite understood when he would say, "There's barriers that will need more effort throughout recovery, like going back to work or proposing to a partner." So I know it's impossible because you're so focused on the way you're feeling. But if you're less than 6 months in to finding our channel or reading the books, imagine that, like, just when you're doing your disputing, what if I don't feel better for another 18 months? Like, really think about that and be like, I got to start changing my mindset about this. Because if your mindset is off, and by the way, you can force your mindset. This whole world that, like, oh, I feel fake, I'm a fraud, it doesn't feel genuine. Trust me, my friends, me and Moment get it. Nothing
Hey,
felt
I said
genuine.
that to you yesterday about working out as
Yes.
well.
Yes,
Yeah.
like it doesn't feel, but once you start to get the momentum going, a lot of that, oh, I can maybe do this, comes from doing the monotonous things over and over again. So, although there's no rules on the correct amount of recovery work in, I can say pretty solidly that this is it. If you've had 5 calls and you have not, I get it with some countries that you live in, but let's say you're not one of those. If you have the book and you've not read it in 5 calls, you're doing yourself a disservice. If you've been in the coaching groups for 3 months, or you've been following us for 3, 6, 12 months, and you're still not working, and you're in not good. If you're not exercising to some degree, it's just your general health
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
so
and
those are
there's
always good
some
things to look
clear,
at.
yeah, and I think, I mean, completely agree with those pointers, and I think that mine would also be that, like, again, there's no blueprint over here. You have to have a little bit of a contextualized, individualized approach at times as well, because each person's personality traits and, again, the way they're, or even just their life setup, whether they're married, whether they have kids, whether they have a job, whether it's a full-time job, whether they're taking care of an ill parent, those are mechanisms you really have to look at in a person's life, and then, like, make kind of like a recovery plan program for them based off of that. So don't in your mind also be like, okay, I heard this in a video, now I have to apply this in a blanket way to myself and everyone needs to follow exactly that. Like, no, I mean, there are going to be certain things that, yes, apply, but then, like, for example, working on your beliefs is like, that goes blanket advice, like, for everyone. But I
Yes.
mean, but then there's a way of, like, going about certain things. And overall, I think the one thing I want to end on is, as much as you think that there is a rush to recover, there isn't.
No,
Trust me, there is no rush to recover at
no.
all. Like, there's no train that you're going to miss in, like, 2 months or something. Your certain life plans might get delayed, perhaps a year, perhaps by a couple of years, but trust me, there's no rush. So don't put that urgency on yourself that I have to recover by, I don't know, 30 years old, or like 40 years old, or in 6 months I need to be here and this and that. Don't do that to
Yep.
yourself. Keep it flexible.
And like we always say, there's a good. Everyone's going to do a lot of things wrong. There's just no doubt about it. And part of the recovery process, a large part, is learning from those mistakes. So you have to make tons of mistakes. Like, some of my biggest learning lessons came after months of doing pretty good, like in the background, 0.5 to
Yeah.
2, never really getting big, slightly falling back into compulsions. And then, by the way, guys, this could have been 3 years in, 2.5 years in, and having like a 1 month major relapse where I'm like, damn it.
Yeah.
I knew I was not, I was like, shouldn't have been doing that. You knew what you were doing. And
And I said this too in my last video that I did with Rob. I mean, this is what I talked about. Imagine Rob getting on a call with me for 2 years and being like, "Hey, have you done the exposures?" No, I haven't done them. That is so annoying to hear, like, for someone. I mean, Rob, I like, I don't know, he had that patience.
yes,
But
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Imagine,
Guys,
by the
it was a
way,
pleasure.
Nick, I was thinking, imagine if he joins the Zoom link in 5 minutes and he's like, "Where, Nick and Moment? I was supposed to be on this
That
one-to-one." But
would be hilarious. We're busy. She's been literally laying here. Look
bye,
at
Daisy.
Daisy. Look up. She's literally like the biggest brat ever. She'll like paw at you too. So if I'll be scratching her during the video and I
Yeah.
go like that, she'll be like, "Hey, you."
All right,
Guys, it was a
Nick, this was
pleasure.
great, great
That was
impromptu
a lot of fun.
video. Thank you for not joining the one-to-one. We did a real
Yeah,
talk.
thanks, bud. Appreciate it. See you guys later.
See you, bye.